Who can say how many times Jesus played these jokes? When we would reach the point of entering, and sometimes even after having entered, he would now say that he had not let me have the obedience from the confessor, and therefore I should go back to the earth. I would say to him, as long as I was with the confessor, I was obliged to obey him. But now that I am with you, I'm supposed to obey you, because you are the first of all. And Jesus would say to me, No, I want you to obey the confessor. So, not to make it too long, now with one pretext, now with another, he would make me go back to the earth. Those jokes were very painful for me. It is enough to say that I rendered myself impertinent, so that in order to chastise my impertinences, the Lord no longer allowed these jokes so often. I had spent about 3 years in this state already described, continuing to remain in bed, when one morning Jesus made me understand that he wanted to renew the marriage, not on earth as the first time, but in heaven, in the presence of the whole celestial court, and that I should stay prepared for a grace so great. I did as much as I could in order to dispose myself, but since I am so miserable and insufficient to do any shadow of good, the hand of the divine Maker was needed in order to dispose me, because by myself I would never manage to purify myself. One morning, it was the eve of the Nativity of Mary, most holy. My always benign Jesus came to dispose me himself. He did nothing but come and go continuously. And he would speak to me now about faith, and then he would leave me, and I would feel a life of faith being infused in my soul. As rough as I felt my soul before, at the speaking of Jesus, I would now feel it become very light, in such a way as to penetrate into God. And I would contemplate now his power, now his sanctity, now his goodness, and so on. My soul would remain stupefied, and in a sea of stupefaction, I would say, Powerful God, what power is not undone before you? Immense sanctity of God, what other sanctity, as sublime as it might be, would dare to appear before you? Then I would feel myself descend into myself, and I could see my nothingness, the non-entity of earthly things, how everything is nothing before God. I would see myself as a little worm, all full of dust, climbing up in order to take a few steps, and such that it would take nothing to destroy me, but someone who would trample me underfoot, and I would be undone. So seeing myself so ugly, I would not dare to go to God, but his goodness would make itself present before my mind, and I would feel drawn, as though by a magnet, to go to him. And I would say to myself, if he is holy, he is also merciful. If he is powerful, he also contains full and highest goodness within himself. It seemed to me that goodness surrounded him on the outside and inundated him from within. When I looked at the goodness of God, it seemed to me that it surpassed all other attributes. But then, in looking at the others, I would see them all equal among themselves, immense, immeasurable, and incomprehensible to the human nature. While my soul would be in this state, Jesus would come back and speak about hope. I remember something confusedly, because after so much time it is impossible to remember clearly, but in order to do the obedience that wants it so, I will say what I can. So going back to faith, Jesus would say, in order to obtain, one must believe. Just as for the head without the sight of the eyes, everything is darkness, everything is confusion, so much so that if one wanted to walk, he would stumble now at one point, now at another, and would end up falling completely. The same for the soul without faith. She does nothing but go from precipice to precipice. But faith serves as the sight of the soul and as the light which guides her to eternal life. Now, what is this light of faith nourished by? By hope. Now, what is the substance of this light of faith and of this nourishment of hope? Charity. All three of these virtues are grafted to one another in such a way that one cannot be without the other. In fact, what good comes to man from believing in the immense riches of faith if he does not hope for them for himself? He will look at them, yes, but with an indifferent eye, because he knows that they are not his. But hope provides the light of faith with wings, and by hoping in the merits of Jesus Christ, he looks at them as his own, and he comes to love them. Hope, Jesus said, provides the soul with a garment of fortitude, almost of iron, in such a way that all the enemies with their arrows cannot wound her. Not only this, but they cannot cause even the slightest disturbance. Everything is tranquility in her. Everything is peace. Oh, it is beautiful to see this soul invested with beautiful hope, all cleaving to her beloved, all distrustful of herself, and all trustful in God. She challenges the fiercest enemies. She is queen of her passions. She regulates all of her interior, her inclinations, the desires, the heartbeats, the thoughts, with such mastery that Jesus himself remains enamored, because he sees that this soul operates with such courage and strength, but she draws it and hopes for it all from him, so much so that in seeing this firm hope, Jesus cannot deny anything to the soul. Now, while Jesus would speak about hope, he would withdraw for a little, leaving a light in my intellect. Who can say what I comprehended about hope? If the other virtues all serve to embellish the soul, but can make us stagger and render us inconstant, hope instead renders the soul firm and stable, like those high mountains which cannot be moved a tiny bit. It seems to me that it happens to the soul invested by hope as to certain extremely high mountains, such that all the intemperances of the air cannot cause any harm to these mountains. Neither snow, nor winds, nor heat can penetrate into them. Whatever thing might be placed at their top, one can be sure of finding where it was put, even if 100 years should pass. Just so is the soul clothed by hope. Nothing can harm her, neither tribulation, nor poverty, nor do all the various accidents of life dismay her for one instant. She says to herself, I can do everything. I can bear everything, suffer everything, hoping in Jesus, who forms the object of all my hopes. Hope renders the soul almost omnipotent, invincible, and it administers to her the final perseverance, so much so that only then does she cease to hope and to persevere, when she has taken possession of the kingdom of heaven. Then she lays down hope and plunges all of herself into the immense ocean of divine love. While my soul would get lost in the immense sea of hope, my beloved Jesus would come back and speak about charity, telling me, faith and hope give way to charity, and charity connects the whole of the other two together in such a way as to make them one, while they are three. And here it is, O my spouse, veiled in the three theological virtues, the Trinity of the divine persons. Then he continued, if faith makes one believe and hope makes one hope, charity makes one love. If faith is light and serves as the sight of the soul, and hope, which is the nourishment of faith, provides the soul with courage, peace, perseverance, and all the rest, Charity, which is the substance of this light and of this nourishment, is like that most sweet and fragrant ointment which, penetrating everywhere, relieves and soothes the pains of life. Charity renders suffering sweet and makes one reach the point of even desiring it. The soul who possesses charity diffuses fragrance everywhere. Her works, all done out of love, give off a most pleasant odor. And what is this odor? It is the odor of God Himself. The other virtues render the soul solitary and almost unrefined with creatures. Charity, on the other hand, being substance that unites the hearts. But where? In God. Being a most fragrant ointment, charity spreads everywhere and with everyone. Charity makes one suffer the most ruthless torments with joy. And one reaches the point of not being able to be without suffering. And when she sees herself without it, she says to her spouse Jesus, "Sustain me with the fruits, which is suffering, because I am languishing with love. And where else can I show you my love other than in suffering for you?" Charity burns, consumes all other things, even the virtues themselves, and converts them all into herself. In sum, it is like a queen who wants to reign everywhere and does not want to surrender to anyone. Who can say what remained after this speaking of Jesus? I will only say that such yearning for suffering ignited within me. And not just yearning, but I feel as though an infusion in me, like something natural, so much so that, as for me, I believe the greatest disgrace is to not suffer.